In 5.2, we're looking at factors and divisibility. So to help make things a little easier as we go through and say, okay, is a 1 a factor? Is 2 a factor? Is 3 a factor? Some of those things to help speed things up so we don't necessarily have to do long division for every single problem. Now we will still have to. The divisibility rules don't work with all numbers that we might consider a factor. So for example, let's look at the number 64. So I need to figure out what my factors are. Another way that we learned is to make a table. So I'm just gonna draw my table like this. A lot of us like using multiplication equations to help us get there. So I'm just gonna divide these up. Don't know how many I'll need. Maybe I'll need to draw more, that's fine. Over here, I'm gonna write my multiplication equation, and then over here, I'll write the factor pair that goes with it, and that will help us write these in least to greatest order. First thing I'm going to start with for sure is 1 times 64. So I know 1 times 64 equals 64. My factor pair is 1 and 64. Next thing I'm going to do is 2. So in their math book on page 286 is this green chart. This is going to be really helpful as we work. So if we're trying to decide if 2 is a factor, we need to look at the product and say, okay, is the number even? So in our example 64, was 64 even? Yes. So the number is divisible by 2. I don't know what other factor that is. I need to figure that out, but I know that 2 is for sure a factor. So I'm going to do 64 divided by 2. 3 times 2 is 6. 0, bring down my 4. 2, 4, 0. So 32 equals 64. So my factor pair is 2 and 32. Okay, for my next one, 3 would be the next number I'm going to try. If I look at my chart, it says the sum of the digits in my product is divisible by 3. So in 64, I'm going to say 6 plus 4 equals what? 6 plus 4 equals 10. Is 10 divisible by 3? No, so I know that 3 cannot be a factor. Next thing I'm going to do is I'll look at 4. There's no divisibility rule for 4, so I just need to do division. Again, it doesn't work for all of them, but the ones that give us divisibility rules, that will work for any number. We talked about it can work up to the millions. It can work up past that. Okay, so I know I can do 4 times 16. That equals 64. So my factor pair is 4 and 16. Next thing for 64 I'm going to look at is 5. So my product needs to have the last digit be a 0 or a 5. And 64, is the last digit, that 4, a 0 or a 5? No, so I know that I can't do that. Next one is a divisibility rule for 6. So there's 2 parts. The number needs to be even and divisible by 3. So is my number even? Yes, 64 is even. Is it divisible by 3? Well, if I look back here, I already figured out that it was not divisible by 3. So I know that 64 cannot be divisible by 6. The last thing, the last divisibility rule, is the sum of the digits is divisible by 9, means that 9 is a factor. So when I say 6 plus 4 equals 10, is 10 divisible by 9? No. So I know that 9 cannot be a factor. Now I would work the rest of the way through, so I did not do 7 or 8, so I'm going to do 64 divided by 7. Sometimes we'll start thinking, okay, I know my basic facts. I know 7 times 10 is 70, 7 times 9 is 63, so I know that this isn't going to work. 64, can I do 8 times something and get 64? I know 8 times 8 gets me 64. And then I'm going to stop right here because then I would be working my way up. Again, I'd go 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. So my rainbow, once I get here, I know I am done. Sometimes we'll see problems where it will say, like, is for a factor, actually let's do, is 6 a factor of the number? And then we'll give us some questions, so it will say 36, 17, 18, 25, and then you have to answer yes or no. So we're thinking here, can I do 6 times something and get 36? Well, if I look at my divisibility rule, the number needs to be even and divisible by 3. My divisibility rule for 3 is the sum of the digits is divisible by 3. So here I don't necessarily need to solve, I just need to figure out that divisibility rule applies. So 36, is the number even? Yes. Is it divisible by 3? So when I add these up, is 3 plus 6 divisible by 3? 3 plus 6 is 9. 9 is divisible by 3. Okay, 17. So divisibility rule for 6, the number is even. Is it even? Nope, so I don't need to go any further. 18, is the number even? Yes. Is it divisible by 3? So our divisibility rule for 3 is 1, add those digits up. 1 plus 8, that equals 9. Is 9 divisible by 3? Yes. So again, I don't have to solve. I'll show that again so you can see it. And for 25, it says the number is even and divisible by 3. Is 25 even? Nope, so I don't have to go any further.